Hello YouTube and welcome back. Zadarkus here today in the Art of League, going to tell you how to position in lane. There are three different ways of positioning in your lane. You can have a passive positioning, which is normally the default laning positioning that you should be using. You have an aggressive lane positioning and a defensive lane positioning. The three of them are completely different and you should position this way in different occasions. The first one, as you can see here, is the passive positioning. In this way of positioning, you basically stay around your minions, your frontline minions, and if you can, preferably behind the minions, so you can also block skill shots from other champions. And that's something you're gonna learn, especially in the mid lane and to some degree in the bot lane, since a lot of the supports and AD carry have single target skill shots. Now, as you can see, the creep distance is neutral, and you and the enemy champions normally stand around your own minions, and in case of a melee champion you only move closer to last hit, but you mostly stay around your minions. Thanks to that, if your enemy wants to engage, he has to come to your side of the lane. If you are defaulted in the middle of the lane, he will be moving ahead of the midpoint of the lane, making it easier to gank. He will be taking minion aggro because you are in the middle of your minions, and is a good position, is a good neutral position, because if you want to engage or to poke harass, you are close enough to do so. If you want to move back because maybe you are getting ganked or the enemy is trying to harass you or engage at you, you are also somewhat in a defensive position to just move back as needed. So this is by default the way you position in the lane. The next one is the defensive positioning. Now, you use this position if you are under the threat of a gank, or if you are playing against a champion that is snowballing too hard or that just can very easily kill you and you need to be more defensive. You position also like this if you are low on HP and you just want to clear a wave or wait for a gank or something like that. Now, here, as you can see, you stay way behind your minions and you let the lane push towards you so you can safely farm under the tower. If you stay close to the minions, maybe if your lane is pushed as well, you want to choose this defensive position so that you don't get ganked easily or hard engaged. Now, defensive positioning not always means you are playing way too defensive because the enemy is stronger. Like I mentioned, if the lane is pushed, you don't have vision or you are afraid of a gank, it's better to just assume this defensive positioning where you just basically have an entire space of a wave between you and the actual wave. This way you are close to your defensive point, to your turret. You are on the back side of the river, so that if the gank comes from the river, you are already in the middle side of your lane to actually be safe. And always remember to use this in case of a hard matchups, and this is actually one of the main issues with lower experienced players, where they just overextend, keep pushing. When they're low in HP, they stay with the minions close to the enemy, easy to be ganked, and end up just dying and throwing possible leads they could have gotten. And also, if you see somebody doing this incorrectly, you can punish them. Remember, if you are low in HP, the enemy is just too strong, or basically snowballing, or just can engage you and basically kill you or force you out of the lane. If you are afraid of a gank or there is a possible gank coming, it's better to assume this defensive positioning, giving space so that you can actually just come back to your tower and be safe. The next one is the offensive positioning. This is the positioning that you should assume if you are ahead of the enemy, or if the enemy is just way too low and you have enough damage to just kill him. And of course, keep in mind the enemy jungler, if you know for a fact that the jungler is not going to be an issue. Basically, what you want to do here is try to move ahead of your minion wave and be around the enemy minion wave, if not in front of the enemy minion wave, avoiding that the enemy champion can be close to the minions to last hit, and of course even get experience. If he gets close, you may even just engage on him or deal damage. You do this normally when you are pretty secure of your standing at that moment, where you just want to punish the enemy even harder, like I mentioned. But always remember that you should keep in mind that if you engage and if there are minions from the enemy, they will gain aggro on you, and therefore you should be careful with that. Now, this stance is something that takes a little bit of practice to master, because you need to be ahead of the enemy but not focus too much on the enemy. Because sometimes when people do that, I notice that they just end up missing a couple of creeps trying to poke and harass the enemy, and otherwise also when they end up losing vision of their lane for the jungle to gank them, and they just overstay and keep being aggressive like this for a long period of time, they end up being ganked, and many times it turns out like they didn't want to do. So remember, by default you want to have this passive positioning where you're just around your minions in range to last hit easily, and maybe even harass and poke if the enemy gets close. You have a possibility to engage or follow up a crazy gank, and as well to just fall back if you need. If your wave is way too pushed and you don't have vision, if the jungler is nearby and you are afraid of a gank, if the enemy is just way too strong, if you are low in HP, you want to play it defensively, way back preferably, and of course behind the middle side of the map. You can see the river basically divides the map in two sides. You want to be behind that mid section towards your defensive position, your turret. And if you are ahead, you are secure of yourself, you have vision preferably of the enemy jungler, and you can just basically stomp the enemy and punish him even harder, then you want to assume the aggressive positioning, which is basically the opposite of the defensive position, where you are ahead of your minion wave, and even sometimes in the longer lanes like top and bot, you can even be a little bit ahead of the enemy minion wave, so you can completely deny the experience they may be gaining. I hope this helped you, hoped it cleared some things up, and as always remember to let me know what you think in the comments section. Give it a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, subscribe if you are not, share it with your friends, it may help them out a lot. My name has been Zadarkus, and as always this video was made for you. Bye bye.
It feels good without the implants in me. Here to show the world that my skills wanna skin deep. I'm charging the wind speed, moving in the frenzy. Show 'em the champ, leave 'em something to envy. I say divided in the sweet science, ready to rumble in the jungle.